In this video, we will continue with just the basics. Step 2, which is confirm the signer's identity. Keep in mind, step 1 is where we reviewed the document to make sure that it is definitely a document that we can legally and comfortably notarize. Now, for confirming a signer's identity, it's important for you to know that the state of Alabama allows its notaries to use one of two ways to identify signers. The first way is personal knowledge. The second way is government issue ID. With personal knowledge, you are going to want to really know a person. Alabama's law doesn't give us a more in-depth definition of what personal knowledge means. The law doesn't tell us you have to know someone for 6 months or anything that specific. But if you do more research from notary experts, you'll see that they stress the importance that this is a personal, direct knowledge of a person's identity. Let me explain. I have a niece who has been dating a man for a couple of years. I have met him. I have been in his presence several times. I know what his first name is. He probably told me his last name. I don't remember it right now. But I do not personally know him. And so if my niece asked me to notarize her boyfriend's signature, I would require him to produce government issue ID for the first time that I'm notarizing his signature. After I've examined it and I'm satisfied that he is who he says he is, and the name on his ID matches the name or names on the document that he's going to sign, I will not require him to show me ID going forward. For me, I feel that once the signer verifies their identity with me, from thereafter, unless anything changes, I won't require government issue ID from them in the future. So again, if you personally know someone, you've had face-to-face interactions, in-person interactions with an individual over a significant period of time, you do not have to require to see government issue ID from that individual. But for everyone else, as Alabama notaries, we should be asking to see one form of government issue ID. When I say government issue, I'm talking about federal government, as in passport, military ID, any other federally issued identity documents. State government IDs, the most common being a driver's license or a state non-driver ID card. And keep in mind, even though we are Alabama notaries, we can accept IDs from other U.S. states, and we can accept IDs from other federal governments or other countries. I'll talk in just a moment about how I go about doing that. but those are the only two methods. You may have heard about using credible witnesses. That is not allowed for us Alabama notaries to use. So, based on those two options, after we've completed step one, I'm asking the signer, what type of ID do you have? And in fact, because I run a notary business and most of my appointments start off with a phone call to me or an email to me, I ask that question about their identity documents before I even book the appointment. So I'm asking questions on the phone about what type of document it is and what type of ID will you be using. I want to know that up front. I'm also asking, is it expired? If so, when did it expire? If it expired recently, I'm not concerned about that because Alabama's law does not require that it be current. You won't find that wording in there. I'm also asking the signer if they still look like the photo and match the physical description that's on their ID. I'm doing that because I know personally and firsthand and secondhand that some of us, if we've taken a really great photo on our ID, we are so reluctant to give up that photograph. I remember one year hating to renew my license because I tell you, while I didn't look like Beyonce in the photograph, but it was pretty close. It was pretty close. But by me asking these questions before the appointment, it gives the signer time to either obtain additional identity documents to bring with them to the meeting, or it means we're going to have to reschedule for a later date, or she's going to have to find a different notary. The ideal government issue ID will have not only the photograph of the signer, but a signature of the signer and a physical description. The best ID is one having those three components, and that should be your goal. And you definitely want ID that reflects the name, not only of the signer, but the name that will be reflected on the document. And so, yes, you can ask all of these questions up front before confirming your appointment with the individual. Some of you know I've been training notaries for a number of years. I want to say at least 10, 11 or 12 years, right around there. And something that I say in Notary Basics class is to take at least 10 minutes to examine the ID card that you're using and comparing it to the signer. But a lot has changed in the past 10, 11, 12 years. And so now I say take 20 seconds. Slow down and take at least 20 seconds to examine that ID card and compare it to the person seated across from you. Come up with a method of doing that. Say, for instance, you're going to start off looking at the photo or looking at the description, but have a method, a process, and follow it every time. You definitely want to ask the signer to remove their ID cards from their wallet, because you need to touch it, feel it, make sure that there's no tape on it that could indicate that changes have been made to the original ID card. While it's in your hand, you definitely want to examine the name that's on that ID and compare it to the name that's on the document that you have in front of you. Really focus on the suffixes like junior, senior, the third, the fourth. If that document has John Doe the third, that ID card must also reflect the third. This is again why you want to bring these questions up before the appointment. Then focus on the actual data. The date of birth. Does this person appear to be the right age? Now this means you're going to need to calculate the person's age in your head, or have a little cheat sheet handy, or use Siri or the other tools in order to get an understanding of the person's age. Height. That can be tricky because most of the time as notaries we are seated in front of the signer, and it may be hard to detect how tall he is. So if you arrive at the appointment before the signer, if you are meeting in a public place, watch the signer as they come in to meet with you. You know, if it looks as if this person is coming up to my elbow and I'm 5'9", and I look at their ID and it says that he's 6'2", there's a problem. Now, weight can be tricky. It's tough for me to guess a person's weight. I can guess or estimate a person who weighs less than 100 pounds and more than 200 or 300 pounds, but anything in between there, it's difficult for me. The other reason is I think women, we are infamous for not being 100% truthful about our weight when we're asked to write it down. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis on weight, trying to match that up with the signer. Eye color is helpful with some individuals, with others it is not. It can be hard to tell the difference between dark brown and black eye colors. And eye color can be changed. So if the ID says eye color is blue and the person seated across from you has hazel eyes, that you need to ask what's going on. You need to ask the signer in a very polite way, can you help me to understand why your driver's license says your eye color is blue and today I'm seeing hazel brown? Hair color can be changed. And nowadays, hair can changes daily for quite a few people, men and women. And so if it is a major difference, length, type of hair, hair color. Again, feel free to ask questions and be open to the possibility it won't be an exact match, and use your judgment. I would not decline to notarize just based on a different hair color, but you're going to need to use other factors to verify the person's identity. Keep in mind, you're better off comparing things that don't change so easily, like the shape of a person's nose or chin, their ears, especially for men and women with short hair. Do their ears protrude? Are they large? Are they small? The size or the shape of a person's lips. Those things can be changed with cosmetic surgery, but not as easily as hair color and hair length. Keep in mind, we're focusing on that ID card. Again, if in doubt, ask questions. Also, when examining the ID card, you're not only checking the front of the card, you are flipping it over and examining the back portion of the card. I don't have time in this video to get in a lot more detail about the security features of government issue ID cards, but I recommend that you take time to explore that. We all notaries should be familiar with Alabama's state symbol, the logo, the state official seal. Don't skip over that, because what if someone presents an ID to you and they're the Alabama state seal doesn't match with the seal that is on your license? That's a red flag. Again, while I am familiar with Alabama driver's licenses, state IDs, and a few other state ID cards, I could not tell you what a Minnesota state license looks like. And that is why I invest in ID checking guidebooks, so that I can compare the ID cards that I am handed with what is authentic. And if you are notarizing signatures for the general public, I strongly recommend that you invest in the same. I'm going to link a separate video that I've done on checking IDs, and I'll also post a link in the description. Here's what we can't do in Alabama. I mentioned one. We don't do credible witnesses. No way, no how, until the law is changed to allow that. Do not accept IDs that are written entirely in a foreign language. Now, most IDs from other countries, especially passports, is really what I'm thinking about. You will see the foreign language, and usually you will see English as well. So on a passport where it has the person's date of birth will be written in their home language, but then there'll be a slash, and then you'll see date of birth written in English. I'm okay with that. And the numbers, I'm able to make out the numbers. But if there's not enough English on a passport or ID card and you can't make heads or tails about what the information is providing you with, don't accept it. Currently, we are not allowed to accept electronic versions of ID cards. In some states, they do allow their notaries to use that. Excuse me. And so if someone has taken a photograph of their license, and that's what they carry with them day to day, that does not satisfy the requirement for notarizing signatures. Do not accept birth certificates. Why? Do I have to answer that question? Your birth certificate says you are 19 inches long, 8 pounds, 3 ounces. Does that match you today? Years ago, it would be unheard of for someone to have another person's birth certificate. That is no longer true. The other reason why I don't accept birth certificates is I have a sister. We are separated by 2 or 3 years. She could easily use my birth certificate and claim my identity because of our same, our same last names, our same gender, and ethnicity. Okay? So no for the birth certificates, especially not as a primary form of ID. And no, I wouldn't meet with the signer who says they left their ID at home. They'll text it to me later. No. There are a few exceptions that I do make. One, the expiration date of the ID. More than once, I've waited longer than I should have to renew my ID. That doesn't mean I'm not Michelle Riley. It just means I'm late in renewing my ID. And again, because our laws that were revamped last year, the code does not say it must be current. It's ideal for it to be current, but if someone is showing me ID that expired a few weeks, a few months ago, I'm not stressing out about it. What I am going to stress out about is if they don't look like the photograph in the picture, if the name on the ID doesn't match the name on the form. There are, to me, more important things to stress about. I definitely make exceptions for the elderly. It's possible, keep in mind that Alabama state ID, I believe, does not even have an expiration date. And so that elderly person could be showing me an ID 20 years old. And they look very different today. So they will get some grace from me. Someone who is no longer driving, someone who is homebound and dealing with some health issues. I may ask that person for a second form of ID, though. And I do make exceptions when someone renews their ID and they're handed that paper copy, temporary version, I definitely have no issue with that. If they can also show me their hole punched expired ID, to me, the two of those together are sufficient. Those of you who are my age and a little younger might remember the mantra, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit, from the O.J. Simpson trial years ago, where a glove appeared not to fit O.J. Simpson's hand, and so his attorney said, well, since the glove doesn't fit, he couldn't have done the unaliving of the victims. Well, for notaries, I say if you can't verify, then you must deny. If you cannot verify the signer's identity in a satisfactory fashion, you must deny or decline to perform the notarization. When Alabama's notary laws changed September 1, 2023, it now includes a warning to notaries who don't follow the identity requirements. It states that we will be guilty of a Class C misdemeanor if we, quote, take an acknowledgement or administer an oath or affirmation without personal knowledge or satisfactory evidence of the identity of the principal, end of quote, period. Do we really want to catch a criminal charge because we were not thorough in verifying the signer's identity? I don't. In closing, if you are like me back in 2005 when I first started notarizing signatures and I had zero training and I was simply glancing at ID cards, I need you to stop. Stop and instead get training, whether it's from me or someone else. Stop and take at least 20 seconds, it's not that long, to really examine the ID card or cards that you're handed, to make sure it satisfies the identity requirements. I hope you found this information helpful. I'm asking you to help make sure that this video, as well as other videos made by me, get seen by as many Alabama notaries as possible. You can do that by just taking a quick minute to leave a comment, give it a thumbs up, or just subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. And I hope you will join me for the next Just the Basics video, Step 3, where we'll be going over how to calculate the notary fee. Now, something tells me, I bet that video is going to get more views than Step 1 and Step 2 videos, because for some reason, notaries love hearing about calculating notary fees. Whether you do or don't, I hope you will at least join me. Thanks again for listening, and feel free to drop a comment below. Have a great rest of your day.